Welcome into the Irish Squad Show. I'm Joe George, post-game host, and I'll tell you, of all the Notre Dame rumors we've heard, freezing out the Irish was not one that I expected.
I'm Alan Pinkett, two-time All-American, still heartbroken, but looking forward to next year.
Reggie Brooks, 1992 All-American. I must say, I like where things are going with the Irish. Big ups to the AD, Pete Vivacqua. Stand your ground, my man.
And I'm Allison Hayes. I've been covering Notre Dame for more than 20 years, and all I want for Christmas is more Notre Dame football.
Play like a champion today. It's the Fighting Irish Squad Show. Everything Notre Dame Fighting Irish every week. Breaking down the biggest news and game-changing plays the way only Locked On Podcast Network can. Wake up the echoes. The Fighting Irish Squad Show starts now.
Welcome into the Irish Squad Show here on the Locked On Irish YouTube channel and all of our audio platforms. Joe George, Alan Pekin, Allison Hayes, and Reggie Brooks here with you. And we're going to be here with you every week. We'll be doing some kind of show. The four of us, Tyler, some combination of us. We'll be talking Notre Dame football, maybe a little Notre Dame basketball with you guys as well. And on today's show, well, maybe not Alan and Reggie for that part, but on today's show, we'll be talking about Jeremiyah Love, his legacy with the Irish, where he ranks as an all-time running back. Got a couple guys on the show that can help answer that question. A lot of rumors surrounding Notre Dame. If our feelings have changed at all about what happened just a week and a half ago at this point, and our big questions for 2026. Allison, I'll start with you on this one. Jeremiyah Love doesn't win the Heisman, does win the Doak Walker. It was really cool to see him there, though, in New York and still get recognized as one of the best players in the country. So your reaction just to how everything played out over the weekend.
Well, first of all, it just sort of feels like a breakup has happened, and we're the the fans, we're the ones that got dumped. And with Notre Dame, because it's just like, it just ended so abruptly, and it feels unfinished and open-ended, and just there's no closure to it. So this past week, it's just you still just are in shock from it and trying to come to terms with, okay, now we have to move on. And then you sort of had those awards to look forward to. And I think most Notre Dame fans were realistic in the fact that Jeremiyah Love was not going to win the Heisman, although, of course, to Notre Dame fans, he was definitely a Heisman winner in all of our minds. But definitely one of the best Notre Dame football players of all time. We got to witness it in real time. And I don't know that we all had if we were really truly appreciating it as much as we should have or will have now as we have hindsight. You know, who would have thought that Stanford game would have been potentially his last game in a Notre Dame uniform, and now it's just over. But I was glad to see him win the Doak Walker. Incredible for him to win that. And I mean, we already know all of his numbers, and I'll read some of them to you, but you guys know them. But 199 rushes for 1,372 yards. That's fourth most in Notre Dame history. He had 18 touchdowns, adding 27 receptions for 280 yards and 3 TDs, averaging 6.9 yards per rush this season. And just what made it more impressive, too, is that he wasn't just the main and only running back. He was doing it with Jadarian Price, and he totaled 113 rushes for 674 yards and 11 touchdowns. So, you know, take a few of those away from Jadarian, give him to Love, and it puts him up even higher. But just incredible to see everything that Jeremiyah Love did. And it wasn't just his ability to make those plays. And you knew when he got the ball in his hands, he was going to do something special with it. But it was also, I mean, he got some credit. He got a lot of credit for it. But what an incredible blocker he was. That, you know, he was just the ultimate team player. He wanted Jadarian Price to get the ball. He wanted Price to get those touchdowns. Those two were competitive, but like with each other, and they were rooting each other on. And we watched that genuinely this season. Sometimes guys will say that, but you don't really know if you can believe it. But to be in the room with them and to hear them talk about each other and to feel that relationship that they had in the running backs room was really special this season as well. And I've covered a lot of Notre Dame running backs in 20 years and seen some pretty darn good ones. Josh Adams had a great run there, and that was a lot of fun. Kyron Williams and guys like that, and Theo Riddick. But I mean, they don't even come close to what Jeremiyah Love did and his impact that he had on the program, on the field, off the field. And I would love to so I know you want us to say, and for us, all-time greatest running back, or where he kind of ranks amongst them all. And it's hard for me because, I wasn't around really, and I definitely wasn't a media member, no disrespect, but to Alan and Reggie, I was, a kid back then. So I don't have the same appreciation for what you guys did in real time. I can look back at your stats and they're awesome. But we know that stats are just a very small portion of that. But, looking at Reggie and Alan, Reggie, a lot of people don't even remember that you actually converted from a different position. You was a defensive back, and then you converted to running back. And so your Heisman run and your Doak Walker run, that was done basically just in one season. And you had to share time with Jerome Bettis. So you kind of were in that same boat. Of course, you guys kind of messed with me in our last show, but I was right. Reggie Brooks, you were the last finalist for the Doak Walker Award. So Jeremiyah Love winning it for the first time in Notre Dame history, and the first finalist since you did it, Reggie, back in '92. And then Alan, you were amazing and not on a very good team. And I think that probably hurt you overall when it comes to those kinds of accolades. But your numbers were huge. You had 3 consecutive seasons with at least 1,100 yards, 3 straight seasons averaging more than 100 yards per game, 49 career rushing touchdowns, 3 career rushing or receiving touchdowns. And you really were Notre Dame's offense. So for you guys, you are amongst the all-time greatest running backs. And Joe, you and I, we're lucky to be able to share this platform with these two guys. But I'd really like to hear from your perspective, because you are 2 of the greatest of all time. Who do you see as the greatest running back of all time?
Reggie, I'll let you go.
I'll jump on that one, because again, I have some definitely looked at for me. Jeremiah's in my top 5. But I'm, to your point, Allison, like I said, everyone talks about the Gipper. I have, like I said, the folks I saw, I actually got to see Alan Pinkett run, Vegas Ferguson, Autry Denson, Jeremiah, and Josh Adams. So for me, my top 5 are Vegas Ferguson, Alan Pinkett, Autry Denson, Jeremiyah Love, and Josh Adams. And this is basically based on strictly as a running back at Notre Dame and their career there. And, Vegas Ferguson was 3rd in career yards, over 3,400 yards, 1st in single season yards, 2nd and 6th in single game rushing yards, 6th in career TDs, 3rd in single season TDs. And he, averaged 5.2 yards per carry. That is the only reason that Vegas is ahead of Allen. Alan Pinkett, we all know, 2nd in career rushing yards, 3rd in single season, career TD leader, 3rd and 7th. This dude rushed for, 17 touchdowns one year, 16 the next, twice rushed for 4 touchdowns in a game. It was just, he had a lower yards per carry average, and that's a thing to me. Autry Denson, 1st in career yards at over 4,300. 8th in single season, 43 touchdowns, 10th in single season scoring touchdowns, 5.1 yards per carry. Jeremiyah Love, this is what got me, is, like I said, 7th in career yards. And again, he didn't get to, play, like you said, the season kind of finished abruptly. 4th in single season yards per season in a season, 6th in a single game, 3rd in career touchdowns, 1st in touchdowns in a season, and he averaged over 6.7 yards per carry in a season. So that's why, to me, he is he's comes in 4th on my all-time rushes. But again, to your point, hell of a blocker, great competitor. But just strictly from a running back perspective of running, blocking, tackling, not the special teams part of it that gets involved. People because everybody wants to talk about George Gipp. I didn't get to watch George Gipp. I mean, yeah, he averaged over 8.1 yards a carry. He was Mr. Everything. But like I said, I didn't get to see him play. And, I'm pretty sure he was pretty dynamic. But for me, those guys are the guys that I watched, growing up and, seeing Allen, go out and perform. So I didn't know where Notre Dame was in the first place growing up. I grew up in Oklahoma. I mean, it was, Barry Sanders and, Thurman Thomas and Billy Sims, the option. But, I actually got to see some games of Allen playing. Dude, freaking ridiculous. Like you said, you've been on crappy teams because in that time frame, that's why I didn't know where Notre Dame was, because they were getting asses handed to him on a regular basis, and he was it. And you're it, and you're having to do everything, and to compete like that. No doubt about it. But for me, Jeremiah is one of those guys again that just how he talks, how he carries himself on and off the field. That comes into play for me because, he's a genuine individual. I've had the opportunity to speak to him a few times, as well as Jadarian. And you're right. That's a great relationship, and it was just reminded me of my connection with Jerome. We didn't compete against each other. We competed with each other. We worked to make each other better. And you were always rooting for the other guy. Because the thing about it is like, hey, they go out and make a play. You want to come out and make a play, and you just continue to level up, week after week. And you see that, and you see and him not taking the money. That was another thing that really impressed me about him. He genuinely believes in what Notre Dame stands for. He believes in he's going to do great at the next level, but he's going to do great in life. You got great running backs, great talent. It comes and goes. But man, when you find like just good people, that makes a difference. And I just think about some of the great guys, great running backs. I've met Vegas Ferguson, Jerome Heavens, Greg Bell, and some of the younger guys that you talked about, Josh Adams. I mean, that kid, phenomenal off the field. Just so humble and gracious, Archery Denson, I've actually gotten Kyron Williams. These are some just good people, and it makes you feel that much better about what you saw him accomplish this year in light of, all the craziness that's going on. Yeah, that's fine. But this kid, I mean, that spin move, come on. That was hands down. I'm like, okay, yeah, I got to give you props, young man. But just his continued, growth as a player, as a person, and hats off to Coach Freeman and the coaches that coached him, because to me, that's what dictates his growth. He's not just been, somebody that just runs the ball. He's been a spokesperson. He's out there. He's very much able to present himself and his brand, but again, he sticks with what got him there. And the fact that he stayed with Notre Dame when other schools are offering a bunch of money, because that's not life. I mean, yeah, money is great, and don't get me wrong, we all need money. Some Coach Holtz would tell us, it's like, it's not about what someone does for you, it's how someone makes you feel. And Jeremiyah Love, he makes that love symbol, and everybody's going to. That's genuine. You can he's like, hey, this ain't just some branding and whatever marketing promotion. That's who this young man is, and it was definitely refreshing with all that. And props to Fernando Mendoza as well. He won the Heisman, and I felt he deserved it. And I still think Jeremiah is the best player in college football right now. But Fernando Mendoza, what he did and what he represents as a quarterback on a program that has just been in the doghouse forever, and to bring that, and again, goes back to the head coach, Coach Signetti, and what he's done when he was at JMU, that underdog mentality. props to him. Congratulations. But, for my money, it's always going to be Jeremiyah Love because, like I said, I always roll with my guys. And I've gotten to know this young man. And, shoot, hands down, that boy's cold.
Well, I remember watching him play against Northern Illinois, and he had like a 12-yard run where he jumped over somebody and scored a touchdown. And at that point, I said, that kid just made himself a first-round draft pick. All he's done is improve in every way since that play I saw him 2 years ago. And I can unabashedly say I think he is the greatest to ever come out of Notre Dame. Stats can tell you a lot of things, and sometimes stats don't tell you a thing. I just, based on his skill set, his explosiveness, his agility, his vision, his patience, and then I've said it on this show before, I was probably more of a run specialist. You probably don't want to have my ass in there having to block a 250-pound linebacker, but to me, Jeremiyah is the 2025 version of Edgerrin James, which he coined the phrase every down back, not just running back, every down back. And I think he really increased his value to the NFL this year by showing how well he caught passes. I remember the pass against Texas A&M that he caught with one hand, took it in for a touchdown, and then his pass blocking. Joe, you like to say, no block, no rock. So he's definitely, to me, shown that he is the total package. And the reason I say he's the best is because he reminds me a little bit of Rocket, where every time Rocket got the ball, you took a deep breath because you didn't know what to expect. There was going to be some kind of mind-blowing play that was going to happen. And that's the way I felt with Jeremiyah Love. And so I think of, who is the most skilled as well as talented and did the most with his talent. I think Jeremiyah Love is the best to ever come out of that place.
One of the things we'll be doing throughout the offseason here, we'll get as we get closer to the draft, we'll take a look. But I took a peek at Mel Kiper's running back draft rankings. If you guys haven't seen this, number one running back in this draft, according to Mel Kiper from ESPN, is Jeremiyah Love. The number two running back in this draft class is Jadarian Price, according to Mel Kiper. So potentially being the top two running backs taken in this draft is incredible for the Irish. And before we move on to some of the rumors going around, I got to ask, because there's this interview with Marcus and Jeremiyah Love, and there's this little smirk as Marcus Freeman's talking about players potentially coming back. And do you have any hope at all that Jeremiyah Love says, I'm not going out like this? I'm winning a national championship next year at Notre Dame. Is there any hope he comes back, Allison, for you?
I mean, we can all hope. And I think he kind of left the door open just a little bit, but in other interviews, Jeremiyah has essentially said that he is going to move on. You have to. If he wasn't going to be a first rounder, if he wasn't going to be a top 10, if he wasn't potentially going to be a top 5 pick, maybe you consider another year. You want to win a national championship. You want to see what you can do. But man, he's got a very special opportunity. So no, I don't think he's back. I haven't thought he was going to be back since the season started. I figured this was going to be our last season with him as it was. So, but after what he accomplished this year, I think we have to be realistic and know that this was probably it. I wanted to just say, when we look at his special plays, and I don't know if that's kind of the way it's going now in our generation of watching, that you have to be spectacular like that. You can have really good running backs, but they're not doing spin moves. They're not jumping over guys. And it's like, he's okay. But Jeremiyah could do all of that. And so just looking back, he was, I believe, the only running back in Notre Dame history to have 2 90-plus yard touchdowns runs, which was awesome to get to see those in person. for me, coming down last year. So when you're in media and you're up in the press box, they don't allow media to come down until like 4 minutes left in the game, maybe 4 minutes. And we're all kind of lined up at that gate, you know, and you're like just dying to get out there on the field. We're all lined up and you're watching the clock tick down. I'm like, come on, come on, come on. And they open the gate, we all funnel out and we get down there. And I mean, literally, this is against Indiana in the playoffs. Literally, as I finally take my spot in the end zone, they snap the ball to Jeremiyah and he runs it 98 yards to the house. And I watched it. So I got to watch him run away from me. We were in the opposite end zone, but it was just like, oh my gosh, of course he would do that. So that for me stands out as probably the most memorable. And then of course, being there at the Orange Bowl against Penn State. And I mean, that was a short run, but he had been battling injuries. They needed it, absolutely needed it the most in that moment. And he scored that touchdown against Penn State. So those are my top two for sure.
All right, let's take a break here. Let's talk about some of these rumors that are flying around about the Irish. A freeze out, a report from a fellow Locked On podcast about a meeting that may take place at some point, or maybe has already supposedly might have taken place. We'll get to all of that next year on the Irish Squad Show. Today's show is brought to you by Aura Frames. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. If you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap. It's a way to share memories because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it, so when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. The packaging comes gift ready with no price tag, no wrapping need, which is a huge win for the holidays because wrapping gifts is the worst and also the best, but sometimes the worst. And it's the holiday gift that actually gets used, not forgotten in a drawer. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code COLLEGE. This deal is exclusive to listeners and frames sell out fast, so order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. All right, so there's a bunch of stuff flying around about Notre Dame, and it's not going to stop anytime soon with the way that, you know, there's been a media blitz from the Notre Dame athletic director, and there's just all this about the guaranteed spot in the playoff. There's all this stuff going on. It's not going to slow down, especially I think not between now and January 23rd, which is the deadline for college football playoff expansion. That to me is the day where a lot of this will slow down, and the rumors will start up soon about the transfer portal and who's in and who's out and all that fun stuff as well. But I want to start with this supposed freeze out. Allison, when you hear this, that teams might want to take Notre Dame off their schedule if they're guaranteed a spot in the top 12, I guess first I'll just say I don't understand how this got passed.
Me either.
How are they talking about a freeze out if someone had to sign off for this? Like Notre Dame can't just write this into the bylaws, I don't think, of the college football playoffs. So what's your reaction when you hear about this supposed freeze out that could be on the way?
Well, the guaranteed top 12, that was shocking to me, just in the terms of the whole idea of having this committee and the way they have the CFP, formed, and the reasoning for that is to be fair. And so I was very surprised that Notre Dame would have been able to have finagled a deal like that. I mean, good for Notre Dame, but I just don't see how that is fair and how any other member conference or school would be on board with that. So I would love to learn more as more comes out about it. But in terms of other schools, and I can see other schools being upset right now or not liking the way Notre Dame is handling it. Well, basically, if you don't love Notre Dame, you hate them. It's one or the other, and I get that part of it. But for other schools to say they're not going to schedule Notre Dame, I think that that's just dumb. That's immature. That doesn't help them. We've talked about this before on this show. The amount of money that a team can earn by scheduling Notre Dame, by playing Notre Dame, the amount of media coverage, publicity, national media coverage that they're going to get. And beating Notre Dame is huge on anyone's schedule. Losing to Notre Dame can hurt, but not as much as beating Notre Dame can help. So all of those three things combined, I mean, other than if you just have a personal vendetta against Notre Dame, they just personally do not like the Irish, there is absolutely no business reason, because at the end of the day, that's what all this comes down to, business and money. There is no good business reason why you would intentionally leave Notre Dame off your schedule. So I find that hard to believe. I can believe that teams don't like them. I can believe athletic directors do not like Pete Bavacqua or don't like what Notre Dame is and their independence, but I just don't see why they would even consider not playing Notre Dame if they have the opportunity to.
Well, you have to explore the reason why they would even mention freeze out. And the reason they mention it is because Notre Dame is bigger as an independent than all these other conferences. You know, is Penn State a global brand? Is USC known in China? You know, is Alabama very popular in the state of Georgia? You know, so I'm not trying to be boastful. The fact that Notre Dame is independent stands for something more than being at a conference. And make no mistake, they may talk about freezing folks out, but like Allison said, there is no good financial reason to freeze somebody out unless you don't. If you want to take a pay cut, freeze Notre Dame out. If you want your stadium to sell out, then you have Notre Dame on the schedule. But it's one of these folks are mad and unfortunately jealous about what Notre Dame has built on its own as an independent. And I've listened to lots of prognosticators and everything. And after listening both pro and con, I'm even more emboldened to maintain our independence, you know, because it stands for something. But at the end of the day, even with this agreement to have Notre Dame have a guaranteed spot, the only thing Notre Dame can do to guarantee to be in the playoffs is win all their games. Just win all your games, and at the very least, only lose one. You do that, then there will be no doubt. In fact, I'm calling the 26 campaign "Leave No Doubt." So all these folks can talk about what they might do, but they've got somebody to answer to in terms of what the bottom line will be because of what they might want to do. But for Notre Dame, stay independent and beat everybody and leave no doubt.
Well, for me, it's I don't think it's necessarily the schools. I think it's more of a conference push. Mm-hmm. Just like the whole deal against, with the ACC, that wasn't Miami, that was the conference, because these schools make up these conferences, and we've seen the acrimony that exists between individual teams and the conference. So, for the Big 12 to come, saying, hey, they're meeting after their conference, after a conference commissioner, has this like, oh, well, Pete Bavacqua, he didn't handle it well and blah, blah, blah. And like, really, dude? How are you going to tell Pete anything? And let's be honest. How was Notre Dame viewed in football, college football? They're viewed as a conference within themselves. That's why I'm not surprised that Notre Dame had that clause in there, because as a whole, Notre Dame brings value not only to the teams that they play individually, but they bring eyes to the sets. They bring butts. They put butts in seats on a weekly basis. So it makes no sense to say, well, hey, they've been saying this for a long time. Let's try to put Notre Dame in a box, and it never works because it's not going to benefit them in the long run to do that. So I think this is just hyperbole to a point, but this is pushing a narrative of they were doing that last year, and that was the Big Ten that was doing. Everybody was, Notre Dame belongs in a conference. Everybody has to be in a conference. And it's the same push to get something, because the conferences, they have issues. I'm just going to throw something out there. So why is it that instead of pushing Notre Dame to join a conference, how about with the state of college football become independent in football and call up Pete Bavacqua and ask him, how are you guys getting this done? Let's have a conversation. Because I think Ohio State traveled extremely well across the country. The Texases, the Alabamas, the Georgias, they can go independent in the football perspective. And like I said, hey, we'll keep the conferences there. But can you imagine how what the conferences, they're already having this problem. This is already an issue because you had Ohio State, Michigan bitching and moaning about the situation of sharing dollars with X, Y, and Z. ACC, Miami, Florida State, Clemson. It was like, hey, what's going on? The only conference that's been mainly stable is the SEC, because Greg Sankey, that man, he got that thing tight right now. Greg Sankey is the SEC, and but they have a different rule of thumb in how they do things. And the other thing is, like, when you talk about going to the Big 12, do they represent and I'm talking about strictly from a university standpoint. Why would you go to the Big 12 when you can go to the Big 10, which have much stronger academic institutions, the ACC, much stronger academic institutions? It just doesn't make sense to say, well, hey, we're one of the leading academic athletic, programs in the country. Yeah, let's go to the Big 12. Let's go join Arizona State. Yeah, nothing against Arizona State, but last time I checked, that was a bit of a party school. No disrespect, but Michigan, strong academic organization. Purdue, Northwestern. I mean, there's a difference in the North Carolina, Duke. So let's look at that first. But I just don't see. I mean, in the freeze out schools, it's not coming from the schools, the individual schools. There's no way. This is the conference push, like it was the conference push to get Notre Dame out of the playoffs. So they can be stupid, but they're not crazy. They're not crazy. I mean, because they know what Notre Dame brings. So yeah, as a conference, yeah. I mean, because the main thing from a conference standpoint is what? The TV deal. But for the individual schools, man, if you got Notre Dame coming into town, that's money. Money's coming in. And that money's coming in specifically to your institution, not the conference. Big, you see what I'm saying? That's a big difference between like dollars coming directly to your. That's why, like most of these schools, they raise the price for tickets for the Notre Dame game, because those dollars of tickets are coming to them. It's not going to the ACC. When we played Miami, when that stadium was packed out, that was Miami came up that game, and more power to them. All for it, but this just doesn't make sense on its face, other than this is just another push to promote their conference and say, hey, we have these deals and we're going to freeze Notre Dame out if they don't join the conference. It's not benefiting any of the individual institutions. It's only benefiting the conferences.
Well, and let them come forward. If that's really the case and you're going to freeze Notre Dame out, come forward. Let us know what schools are freezing Notre Dame out, because that would be really interesting to see. And to the point of scheduling, not only is it the biggest game on almost anyone's schedule who does have Notre Dame on their schedule, if you look historically, almost every time a team plays Notre Dame, they schedule a bye week before Notre Dame so that they have that extra week to prepare. So don't tell us that it doesn't matter if they play Notre Dame or it doesn't matter if they beat Notre Dame, because that is huge for any team to add that to their resume. And Alan, in terms of scheduling for next year, Notre Dame is going to have to win out, or I don't even know if they can afford one loss, because that is not, unfortunately, that is not a strong schedule that we're looking at for next season. We've got to hope that USC is going to be right up there and be good and be ranked. And Miami, that'll be really interesting. Short of that, we're not looking at a whole lot of intrigue or teams that are going to be ranked in the top 25. You're looking at Wisconsin, Purdue, Rice, teams like that. So Notre Dame is definitely going to need to win out, show out in all of those games.
No doubt that, and that's why I say leave no doubt as the slogan for next year. And you got to crush these teams. Yes, it's getting tougher to get teams on the schedule, but the schedule is what it is. The schedule doesn't determine how you play, so you just got to go out and crush everybody and leave no doubt, because the only thing that concerns me about this so-called guarantee is the committee might rank them 14th.
Right.
So if you win all your games, you leave no doubt.
Yeah, it's going to, with the freeze out, it's like people are griping about the schedule, but like the American is still going to schedule Notre Dame. So like if the Big Ten and the SEC are like, all right, well, we're going to take Alabama and Texas and all these schools off your schedule, then the American and all these other conferences, like they're like, okay, we'll play Notre Dame, and then Notre Dame will literally have the easiest schedule in the history of college football outside of the ACC games, which aren't currently challenging either at the moment. And that won't be like that forever. The ACC might be good at football again eventually if they don't die as a conference. But Locked On Big 12 reported before the Big 12 commissioner talked about the Notre Dame athletic director that there was going to be some kind of conversation happening between Notre Dame and the Big 12. And it wasn't referenced exactly if it was all sports, including football, or probably just the Olympic sports is my guess. But the TV deal is what is referenced here, is that the Big 10 TV deal, the ACC TV deal, the SEC TV deal, you can't really move them. But the Big 12 apparently is open to having some conversations with NBC and allowing Notre Dame to keep its money, basically. If they were going to leave, I'm with you, Reggie. The Big 12 doesn't make sense. And what I'm going to reference here is before all of our times, way before all of our times. But the Big Ten did reject Notre Dame. The last time was what, in 1926, I think it was. Like, Allison, do you think like that factors in for the Irish of like, hey, they've already rejected us 3 times. It's been 85 years, but we're not going to the Big Ten.
I don't know so much about that, but I do remember, and Reggie, you guys might know a little bit better, but I remember there being alleged beef between Jack Swarbrick, the former athletic director at Notre Dame, and the athletic director at Michigan, and that playing a role into the relationship with the Big Ten and the scheduling for Michigan for future games. So I think probably more of that in terms of recent years. What happened in 1920, I don't know that matters as much today. But it's just always been, I mean, then, now, 1980, 1990, whatever year it is. I mean, Notre Dame is an independent because it is its own brand. Notre Dame does not need the Big Ten. And while that might be the most logical fit, Notre Dame doesn't need to do that. It doesn't make sense for them to do it. And so I don't think that that's ever going to happen.
Yeah, and I'll just say this, we're only speaking football.
Right.
We could, when we're talking about all the other sports, yes, I don't mind an affiliation because, all those sports cost money too.
Sure.
But for football, I hope that Notre Dame maintains its independence, not only because they should, because they can.
I still think that it would make sense for these other schools to, especially with the money that's being thrown around, your Texases, your Alabamas, your Ohio States, Michigans, that have they have brand value.
Yep.
The Clemson, the Florida States, there is a brand value there. And I think, again, you can, with the private equity component coming in, don't sell yourself short. Give Pete Bavacqua a call, because he'll talk to you and tell you, this is how we did this. I mean, instead of being upset about it and, wanting to like, oh, well, they have to join the conference. Don't go that route. Don't go groupthink route. Think outside the box and say, okay, hey, is it possible we can create a more of a league focus around independence from a football standpoint? Because, and again, I worked on the Olympics sports side of it. They're frustrated with it. It makes sense. I mean, actually, where Notre Dame is now, I think it would behoove other sports to go. I mean, other schools to go in that route, because the non-revenue sports, it's not great. I mean, but if you can get someone to provide capital for these other sports, let football separate, because it's just a different animal altogether. And for those schools that have the basketballs that are generating revenue, the March Madness, again, it's just a different approach and a different way to think about it, which I just really feel Notre Dame is in a position to be a leader in the new era of college sports. That, instead of being pissed off at Notre Dame and trying to find ways to screw them over or make them less than, hey, try to understand where that's coming from and see, is there an opportunity for us to do something like that? Because I'd read a ESPN article, and it talked about how the Big Eight and the Southwest Conference, the changes they had, the backroom deals that were done to freeze out certain programs, and that's how you got the SEC and these bigger conferences. It was not the schools that were driving this. This was something driven by shady backroom deals that were mainly about football in the first place. So I don't see why you can't revisit that and say, hey, let's look at it from a different perspective and say, okay, why is Notre Dame why do they have such a powerful brand? And secondly, is this something that we can, ride the coattails on, or at least understand how to develop this for what we have? Because football is a completely different sport than it was 10, 20 years ago in terms of, like I said, the energy around it, the focus, especially at the collegiate level, that energy and constant fandom is there. I think there's an opportunity. It's just, will these programs be willing to take it and tell the conferences kick rocks?
I think that's where we're headed. I don't know when it's going to happen, because the TV deals don't line up between the four major conferences, but I think we're headed to a independent college football. And then hopefully we just like the Olympic sports can go back to their actual conferences. So,
Right.
Stanford doesn't have to, like, their volleyball team doesn't have to play West Virginia, which makes no sense. So I feel like that's where we're headed, but who knows when it's going to happen. All right, we'll take our final break here. When we get back, we'll look at some big picture questions, just our biggest questions that we each have going into the 2026 season, into the offseason, into the summer ball, all of that. We'll get to that next year on the Irish Squad Show.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Obviously, a lot's going to change, not just for Notre Dame, but for everyone. As we're doing this show live, DJ Lagway of Florida has entered the transfer portal. So it's like, you never know. Like, that was a Heisman favorite. Now, he's not going to be a Notre Dame quarterback, obviously, because the Irish have their quarterback. But, like, things are going to change. But biggest questions for 2026. I'll go first here. My first one, because I have two, is who's your kicker going to be? It is at the top of my list. Is like, how are you going to fix the kicker position going into next season? And then past that is like between your development, the transfer portal, the recruits you've brought in, how are you going to improve your pass rush? That to me is, I feel like, the two areas where Notre Dame has to improve the most this offseason. I think a lot of the other pieces are from quarterback, wide receiver, running back, like offensive line. They're pretty young. Like, they shouldn't lose a ton of guys to the draft from their starting 22. But that's for me is kicker and pass rush are my biggest questions going into next season. Allison?
Well, I'm glad that Charles Jagasaw still has eligibility left, and we'll be able to see him hopefully finally healthy after 2 straight seasons, essentially missing entire seasons with injury. And I think that will make a huge difference. Of course, whether or not Jadarian Price is going to be coming back or not, how high of a draft pick he's going to be, I think most likely he's gone for Notre Dame as well. So we're going to see Aeneas Williams stepping in and being the number 1 running back for next season. But how strong is that offensive line going to be to block, to open up holes? So those are, I guess, the O-line for me is a big one. And then how they I'm not worried about Aeneas Williams whatsoever. I think that the run game is in great hands. Quarterback situation is great, knowing that CJ Carr is coming back and has a very strong potential to, I mean, they're already talking about him as the way too early Heisman candidate for next season, which would be incredible. The receivers, I think, that's going to be a question. Where are they going to, who's he going to be throwing to? So that could be a spot where they're going to be looking into the portal to try to get, they've done that the last couple of years with guys like Malachi Fields, and we saw what a great year he had, and Will Pauling. So will they, go to the portal for some receivers, and then special teams and the kick game? I mean, just that was the biggest concern, I think, going into the playoffs, whether or not, if it came down to it, what do you do? You're coming down to 4th and 1. Do you go for it, or do you bring the field goal kicker out? And that was such a sore spot for the Irish all season. And I think that would have been the biggest concern for them if they would have made it into the playoffs. Is it's just so important to have someone solid there. And so are they going to go to the portal there? Are they going to try to develop what they've got? That to me is, I mean, that it doesn't seem like it should be that big of a deal, and a lot of people forget about it, but I think that's a really important question mark for this team as they move forward.
Well, I fully anticipate Notre Dame using the portal as they have in the past, just to shore up certain areas. But I think that with CJ Carr at quarterback, you're going to attract some very, very nice receivers to come to Notre Dame. Now, they have to qualify academically, but these kids now, they are a little smarter, and they know, look, there's smart kids everywhere, and they understand, that it's not a football factory type of system anymore. You got to have all your stuff together. So I think the group of qualified athletes exists. It's out there. But when I look at Texas A&M and getting Concepcion, how that just changed that team all around, I look for Notre Dame to be able to do something like this. And any receiver is going to want to come here when you've got this one quarterback who loves to throw it down the field. Kicker, hopefully there's some good kickers that enter the portal. Otherwise, you're just going to have to develop what you have. But that's definitely an area that needs to be shored up, because you just don't want to have that worry every time you go to kick a field goal or an extra point that it might be missed. That just it messes up the whole vibe of the team when you can't trust your kicker. And then on defense, I'm sure we'll probably be able to get a safety or a corner or two, or maybe a good defensive lineman. I think we'll probably be able to get through the portal a qualified, bona fide tight end. Yeah, because what do Notre Dame tight ends do? Go to the pros, And just to finish off, I hope Jadarian Price just consults with the right people to determine if going to the pros is the right move. I have this saying, you don't leave early to go late, meaning you don't leave school before your eligibility runs out to be drafted in the 5th round.
Right.
And I remember saying it to what's his name, Justin Tuck. I was saying, don't leave early to go late, but he left early, and he ended up making the right decision with what he did. But if a Jeremiyah Love or Jadarian Price stay in school longer, you get to a point where the only direction your stock can go is down.
Right.
So you want to enter the league with your value being the highest, and right now it's the highest, so they have to go.
Well, I'm with Joe on the defensive line, and particularly the defensive tackle position. I feel that they have some guys that can rush on the edges. So it's really the ability to get push up front and to collapse the pocket is going to be for me the area that again they may have, and I think they've gotten some guys, because I do feel this defensive line continue to get better over the course of the year. And again, we were able to get some pressure, but we had to bring linebackers and things like that. So my question also on the offensive side, I'm more concerned about the running back position. I mean, which when you lose a Jeremiyah Love, which is very likely to happen, not to mention a Jadarian Price, and Aeneas Williams is going to be fine, but you got 2 dynamic playmakers that you're losing. That's not an easy thing to go out and fix in the first year. And again, I'm still waiting to see Kendron Young play, because I really like his skill set, big body guy, and I think he and Aeneas could work well off each other. Don't know enough about and I don't trust freshmen coming in anyway, so that's the point of we're going to talk about. But I think from a quarterback's position, you're good. And Allison, I think our offensive line is going to be fine. I think our offensive line is going to be just fine. We're not. I mean, are we losing anybody off the offensive line?
I think Ashton Craig will be back healthy wise too. So Charles Jagasaw and Ashton Craig should potentially both be back. So yeah, I agree. I think that is very.
That's a lot of depth on that too, because I mean, Gerby Young, Gerby Lambert, they had a lot of guys that stepped up and played very well.
Mm-hmm.
But that also gave them game time exposure too. So I'm less concerned about the offensive line, but more defensively, in particular the defensive tackle position, because it's for us to get to that next level. And you've seen it with the Georgias, the Penn States, the Ohio States. Where are they getting those defensive tackles that can rush the passer? That's what we got to go get. And as far as the special teams, hey man, make a call to you got some guys that are pretty good about developing kickers. Craig Hendrick kicked in the league for a number of years.
Carney,
John Carney. That's John Carney. Actually, he is the reason for Aubrey. That's literally considered the best kicker at the Cowboys. I mean, in the NFL right now. No, I mean, you have these assets. Make a phone call, because I don't know who the special teams. Well, I know who the special teams coach is, but it's obvious he don't know how to coach kickers. I'm sorry. You got some people that know how to coach kickers and develop them. Send their ass to camp. I don't know what, but get that fixed. And you got guys that have kicking camps. I mean, especially now, you can't just go send. Hell, this kid did not play football at all. And he is now the top kicker in the NFL. And he worked with Carney. And so I'm like, you got a guy. Help yourself. I mean, I guarantee you, if you call John Carney, he'd be there in a heartbeat. Bring him to the camps. Give him some, I don't know what you need to do, but I'd have his ass on campus yesterday.
Oh yeah. Last time I saw him was in the tunnel 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago for a USC game. So yes, he's somebody that they need to keep close to the program. And I just wanted to point out one thing. Forgive me for interrupting. Because with all this chaos, how many signees did Notre Dame lose? Not a single one. Not a single one. So they see what's on the menu here. They see what's cooking here. And that's after that signing day where you had none say, no, I'm going to sign with somebody else. You got a strong group coming in here. And that's why I'm so gung-ho on next year in the Leave No Doubt campaign, because we got some solid folks coming in and should be able to shore up some other positions. And it's got to be a mindset going into next year, no matter what these other conferences say, whatever what these other teams say, leave no doubt.
I would not be surprised if Jeremiah and Jadarian came back. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but it wouldn't shock me.
No.
I mean, just based on the type of young men that they are, I can see them saying, well, hey, let's look at this. But the one thing I would say is if they have insurance policies, it's like, we're good. We got our degrees. Maybe you go get a master's now and just add to it and you get it for free. Plus you're getting paid, plus you're insured. Again, so that would that's my little slight nudge to Jadarian and Jeremiah. Like, you can't come back, because I'm telling you, college is still fun. Oh yeah, pros are a different animal altogether.
That's a business.
And once you go there, it is it's not, that camaraderie is not nearly the same.
You don't get that back. Once you leave college, you can't get it back.
Yeah. And I think, again, that would be my only, said, hey, if you guys are this tight and this close as this team seems to be, or, looking at, you don't want to leave that too early. And, to your point, like I said, I think both those guys are going to be, first, second, third round third round picks. But I mean, what are you giving up versus what you're receiving? Because again, now that you're getting paid, you got to make that decision. And I think also their families will have a big say in that. And again, you talk about the good number of guys that keep coming to Notre Dame and not losing anybody in the recruiting classes. That's not by happenstance. It's not by coincidence. Marcus Freeman is the guy. People want to play for him. People want their children to play for him. And I always look at his parents and how he was brought up. That's who he is. And again, a lot of times, you can run to the league and make some money, but it makes a difference when you're around people that you genuinely care about and that genuinely care about you. We always call Notre Dame the bubble. It was a safe haven because you had people that were going to embrace you and care for you like family. That's hard to leave, man. I'm telling you, that is hard to leave.
Joe, just to add a
and it
thought
pulls
on
you
that.
back in. They pull us back in too. You can't leave. They pull us back in.
I would think though that, I mean, for these guys, no matter what, their ultimate goal is to be NFL players, and there is always that risk of coming back and anything, even if the money and you can have the insurance policy and be okay financially, but the goal, the status of being an NFL player, that's something that they're always going to then wonder, what if I wouldn't have tried for one more year, if I would have just gone to the NFL, what if, because that's ultimately what they really want to do. Just a final thought though, on that recruiting class that Marcus brought in, incredible. The number 2 recruiting class, I believe that's the highest in the modern era of keeping track of this stuff on online in the internet era. Just incredible, and what he's been able to build here in the last couple of seasons. The recruiting classes just keep getting better and better. That is the one thing, and I know I took a lot of heat on socials about this, but I would have liked to have seen Notre Dame play in a bowl game. I know why they said no. I get it. I totally understand it, and in some ways I respect it. They're standing up to an injustice, and they have a platform in which they can make change, and not other schools, not a lot of other people can do that. So kudos to them in that sense. They stood up for what they felt was right. But I would have liked to have seen them play. I would have liked to have seen that class, because they also have like a record number of early enrollees coming in this winter. And it would have been wonderful for those guys to get legit, real bowl game practices had the Irish played in a bowl game. But I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, well,
right.
what the hell good is power if you don't use it?
It's true. True. Well, I mean, they probably just single-handedly changed the bowl system forever.
Yeah.
This year, and again,
I killed the bowl system.
Oh, yeah.
and also like they're one of like 9 schools that did not play in their bowl game this year, so they're not the only one. I mean, now they're the only one doing it for this reason, but they're not the only one that skipped out on the bowl game this year. All right, that will do it for this episode of the Irish Squad Show. We will be back next week. We'll be doing weekly shows throughout the season. There'll be a little bit different formats. Obviously, as we get into the off season, we'll be trying out some new things probably throughout the off season as well. And we'll be doing some mailbags and all that kind of stuff, and hopefully some interviews as well. So for Alan and Reggie and Allison, I am Joe George. We will talk to you guys next week. Enjoy your week. Go Irish. Talk to you soon.